The Wonderful World of Darklords. Report 7. Flint's Archipelago. When my skiff landed on the island of Crescentia, I felt the same level of culture shock that visitors from the most sheltered and human-dominant domains must feel upon arriving in Martira Bay. Elves, dwarves, and gnomes seemed banal in comparison to the variety of residents in Flint's archipelago. The small number of humans sat shoulder to shoulder with tabaxi, turtles, warforged. A Lamordian laboratory could scarcely have had more variety. Crescentia was a rough port, and I felt a constant sense of looming danger, although that may have been a lingering reaction to my latest correspondence with my illustrious patron. I never told you about my brother, Yen said. I never told you anything about that night, and I have never told a living soul the details of how it ended. You seem to know more about me than anyone has any business knowing, and yet you have not seen fit to tell me as much as your actual name. Do you delve this deeply into the lives of everyone in your employ? Who have you been talking to, and why? I can think of a few ways and reasons you may have sought out this information, and I care for none of them. I am grateful for the tutelage you have given me, but if you have done this much research into my life, you know better than to test me where my family is concerned. At any rate, as mentioned, Crescentia had a sense of danger in the air, and I made sure that my hand never strayed too far from my purse as I searched for the ship that I had hired. People scuttled away like roaches in the light whenever the Warforged constabulary appeared, and I overheard several muttered conversations about shipments of contraband, the sailing schedules of wealthy merchant ships from Port Ivy, and the details on the fortifications of nearby ports. I soon learned that, while Crescentia wore its criminality on its sleeve far more than other islands, piracy rotted in the hearts of Flint's archipelago, with greed, treachery, and a lust for plunder ensuring that if anyone presented an open hand, the other was concealing a dagger behind their back. The Lord. I knew that my skiff was no match for the task of carrying me throughout the archipelago. I needed a crew with knowledge and experience, and I had been in touch with a sailor named John Silver, who offered just that. He and his crew were on a journey to map some unexplored islands in the far corners of the realm. Silver assured me that so long as I pulled my weight, bringing me along would be no extra trouble for them, and would allow me to take in the various islands along the journey. Silver ran what appeared to be a clean, respectable inn at the heart of Crescentia, and I found myself liking him immediately, although recent circumstances should have taught me to be more sparing with my trust. Several of his limbs had been replaced by bizarre bits and pieces from Warforged or other inorganic constructs, gifts from a Lamordian doctor that had saved his life after multiple mishaps at sea. I noticed some secret rooms in the inn that likely had a less savory purpose, but in Crescentia, a little smuggling or bootlegging seemed to go with the territory. His crew was a rough lot, more in line with what I was accustomed to seeing in Crescentia, but he was able to pull them back into line with a word or a look. At first. The longer our voyage went on, the more distracted Silver appeared, cutting his eyes to the corners of the rooms as if seeing something, speaking too loudly as though trying to drown out an interruption that I never made. At the time, I chalked it up to the stresses of the voyage. It is a testament to Silver's charisma that no other possibility occurred to me until it was almost too late. The land. While Crescentia was more rough and tumble than most ports, piracy seemed to be the rule of the archipelago rather than the exception, and not only for those who proudly declared themselves to be pirates. Tolls and fines varied tremendously from one point to another, and I suspected that the difference went straight into the pocket of the toll taker. If I'd caught a whiff of perfume, I would have thought that Silver had taken me to Borca by mistake. Even the archipelago's common name reflects its larcenous nature. While its technical name is the Imperium, everyone knows that its true master was Captain Flint, a legendary and bloodthirsty pirate who left the island's residents quivering in terror during his reign on the seas. Flint vanished some time ago, taking his treasure with him, and the residents of the archipelago have whiled away many an evening swapping theories about its ultimate destination. Our voyage took us past islands with bustling ports and with only a few shepherding villages, with lush jungles and with nothing but a single lighthouse overlooking barren rock. The silhouettes of great marine beasts swam beneath the waters, massive sharks, dragon turtles, even something that could only have been a kraken. The mood of the crew became more tense the farther west we traveled, and while Silver continued to claim that they were on a simple mapping expedition, none of them seemed to know how to use cartographer's tools. At one point, I was awakened in the night by an unfamiliar voice crying for help. When I followed it, I found several members of the crew discussing in low tones whether I could be trusted, saying that Silver couldn't let me have a share in what was theirs by right. The source of the voice was nowhere to be seen. I resolved from then on to sleep lightly, and with my spell components close at hand. Dread possibilities. On the 5th day of our voyage, a cry of excitement went up from the crew. At the beginning of the journey, I would have thought that we had caught sight of our first uncharted island. Now, I could only hope it would lead to an opportunity for escape. As the crew prepared to land, Silver approached me and said that he'd been watching me during the voyage, that I was a dab hand, by thunder, and that he wanted me to help him with their true goal, finding Flint's treasure. He looked perturbed when I laughed in relief. A treasure hunt? Was there any more mundane reason for an adventuring crew to set out on a journey? Let my patron note that if the crew had been honest with me from the beginning, I may have signed on to what I believed to be a jolly adventure and accompanied them to the island with no fears. Remembering their lies and plotting, however, I could not make myself believe that they would share the treasure once it was found, or that they would believe that I had no interest in it. Fewer surviving treasure hunters meant a larger share for those who lived. No sooner had I thought this than I spotted the spectral figure of a man in pirate garb over Silver's shoulder, a hole in his chest, shaking his head at me in warning. I knew a refusal would be more than my life was worth, so I immediately agreed to join Silver on his treasure hunt. Later, when the crew was in a rum-soaked stupor, I stole a jolly boat and rowed as quickly as possible toward the mists. Parting thoughts. I had thought Flint's treasure a ghost story at first, but having encountered an actual ghost, to say nothing of the backstabbing and skullduggery the horde engendered, I now believe otherwise. Silver is a clever man, and his wisest course of action would have been to tell me the truth of their mission from the start, then kill me once we found it. I can think of only 2 reasons for the deception. Either Silver is the sort that loves to lie so much that it comes more naturally than the truth, or the treasure is cursed in some way, leading seekers to sabotage or betray one another. Perhaps Flint's malevolent spirit is still protecting his trove from any who might wrest it from his grasp, and those who fail return as ghosts to haunt new treasure seekers. Of course, I have no doubt that my patron can imagine a cornucopia of other reasons why one might lie about one's true intentions for no apparent purpose, and I eagerly await his insight on the matter. Although I feared Silver's ship would overtake me, I rowed my skiff into the mists without incident. Clutching my rose mist talisman in my hand, I peered through the swirling mists, looking for a glimpse of something there that wasn't there before. Regards, D.
My petulant servant, your indignation is quite apparent in this bereft report. My methods, just as my name, are earned and not freely given. However, you may rest assured I am fully cognizant of your undying devotion to your family. They, as you, are under my protection as long as my little scholar remains in my charge. Once again, you have let your nerves hinder your abilities to thoroughly research the situation at hand. I have gifted you with the means to protect yourself, and you should rely upon them. For now, we must speculate on what Flint's treasure holds, and why Silver's obsessed with obtaining it for his own. I suspect your cursed treasure theory may be close to the truth, but for now it shall remain as buried as Captain Nathaniel's treasure hoard.
This has been The Wonderful World of Darklords. We have no affiliation with Disney or Wizards of the Coast. All music recordings used in this episode are in the public domain and were obtained through museopen.org. Titles and links are in the show notes. Dialogue for Yensid was written by Aslan Rex himself, who you can follow on Tumblr at darklordaslan. The Wonderful World of Dark Lords logo was designed by Haylight Jones. You can find links to their work in the show notes. If you'd like to support the show, look for us on patreon.com or find our tip jar on Red Circle. Thanks for listening.